World War II for America's Japanese. On December 7, 1941, Japanese fighter pilots launched a surprise attack on the American naval base at Pearl Harbor in Oahu, Hawaii. The next day, the United States declared war on Japan, and Germany declared war on America soon after, launching Uncle Sam into a bloody brawl over the Pacific Ocean to the west and continental Europe to the east. Because of the sneaky tactics employed by the Japanese fighter pilots at Pearl Harbor and their nation's consistent dominance in the early years of the war, and the generally more racist American social climate in the 1940s, Japanese Americans were singled out as a colored race and were widely accused of being spies for their ancestral home. Because of this war hysteria, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 in February 1942, authorizing Lieutenant General John DeWitt to relocate around 120,000 Japanese Americans living on the West Coast to isolated relocation centers. Although less than 3% of these Japanese Americans were estimated to be prone to espionage, DeWitt and many other Americans, including every member of Congress, considered them to be a dangerous race and a risk to American security, loyal or not. This shameful act of racism and paranoia affected those Japanese Americans, old and young, that were imprisoned due to their presumed ties to the enemy, and the aftermath of these events still resonates with them and their descendants to this day, though many of them have found ways to persevere and emerge from their hardship unbroken. Under the new government policy, as many as 120,000 Japanese Americans were grouped together in assembly centers and shipped off to 10 isolated detainment camps in Arkansas and the western U.S. Of these prisoners, about 2/3 were born in America and over 70% were legal citizens. They were forced to leave behind their houses, farms, and businesses, and were often separated from family and loved ones. Life in the camps themselves was also crude at best and unbearable at worst. Surrounded by armed guards and barbed wire, they were forced to build their own barracks themselves, which were often very dusty, lacked privacy, and had poor ventilation, making them hot in the summer and cold in the winter, with cold air blowing through many cracks in the walls. Prisoners ate meals in mess halls, washed in public bathrooms, and were educated and treated for injuries at camp facilities. Japanese immigrants, called Isi, were barred from many services and rights, including citizenship, but their children, or Naisi, were allowed to take jobs as field hands and housemaids on local farms. Hands and housemaids at local farms. Many others tried to join the U.S. military, but with mixed success. According to a BBC News article written by Mariko Oi in December 2016, a Japanese American named Lawson Ichiro Sakai, who was 18 in 1941, was denied the privilege of joining the Navy alongside 3 Caucasian friends. Though he insisted that he was an American, they told him he was a dangerous alien and hence was not a citizen, leaving the young Sakai feeling betrayed by his own country. Though the practice of imprisoning Japanese Americans was stopped in December 1944, many effects of their detainment stuck with them and their descendants to this day. According to a 2017 Smithsonian Magazine article by T.A. Frail, it took many years for prisoners to talk about their experiences in the camps with their kids. According to the article, a former American history teacher in California, Jane Yanagi Diamond, couldn't talk about her time in one of the camps, claiming that whenever she tried, her voice would get all strange. And although around 30,000 Naisi, including Mr. Sakai, were allowed to join the military when the Allies needed more troops, they were often separated into all Japanese units like the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which suffered high casualty rates, with 9,486 soldiers receiving Purple Hearts by the war's end. By this time, around 40,000 Japanese Americans died in total, and the rest often returned home to find that their property had been sold or otherwise appropriated for things like non-payment of taxes. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act, which formally apologized to the survivors of the internment camps and granted them each $20,000. But for many, this couldn't take away the sting of pain and sorrow that their imprisonment left with them from then onward. But through all the trial and tribulation that the Japanese Americans of World War II endured, they held firm and surpassed any and all expectations. In Europe, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team helped win many crucial battles against the Axis powers, and were even officially recognized after the war by President Harry Truman, who said, "You have fought not only the enemy, but you have fought prejudice, and you have won." And as far as the war effort, Mr. Sakai has gone on record saying, "Can you blame the generals for using the best they had?" Through it all, many Japanese Americans sustained themselves with the Japanese expression, "Shikata ga nai," it can't be helped. And besides enduring it, many of their descendants have been able to press forward. Since 2005, photojournalist Paul Kitagaki Jr., the son and grandson of internees, has pored over more than 900 pictures in the National Archives taken by the National Relocation Authority, including one of his father's family in Oakland, California Relocation Center. Through fragmentary captions, he has identified and tracked down over 50 subjects and convinced them and their families to let him take their pictures in settings related to their time of resilience in the camps. One such subject, Miss Yanagi Diamond, who is now 79 years old and retired in Carmel, California, is living proof of the prisoner's unbreakable spirit. She told Kitagaki that she can talk about her experience a lot better now, and also said,
"I learned this as a kid. You just can't keep yourself in gloom and doom and feel sorry for yourself. You've just got to get up and move along. I think that's what the war taught me."